My name is Logan Dubil, and you are watching Campus Reform. Today, I am honored to be joined by Congresswoman Kat Cammack of Florida. Congresswoman, today I want to discuss President Biden's decision to cancel student loan debt for eligible Americans. This plan does not only affect those who have taken out loans, but also Americans who have struggled to pay their debt and chose not to go to their college of choice. First off, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I just want to jump right into this. What was your initial reaction when President Biden announced his plan and decision to cancel student loan debt?
Well, I guess you could say my initial reaction was disgust. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Economics 101 teaches you that. And clearly he must have missed that class in college, or heck, even basic economics in high school. There is no such thing as forgiveness. This is just a debt transfer to so many people, like you said, who maybe didn't take loans out, people who have worked really hard, made sacrifices, and had really tough decisions to make about saving and paying off their loans and their debt. Instead, now we are incurring the debt of so many people who have not been able to pay it themselves, or they're in the process of paying it themselves. But at the end of the day, there is no such thing as forgiveness. It's just a debt transfer.
Yeah, and from what we've been seeing from President Biden and the White House, those eligible are either Americans who have taken out or are qualified for the Pell Grant, and also Americans making less than $125,000 a year. Have you gotten any clarification from the White House or your Democratic colleagues about whether it's just current people with student loans or future Americans will be eligible for this as well?
That's the thing that's also very frustrating about this entire rollout, was that there's been no consideration, one, with Congress. The House of Representatives controls the purse strings. So there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that we in Congress have not authorized or appropriated funds for this. So where exactly are they getting this money? They're going to have to raise taxes or deficit spend. And again, it hasn't been authorized by Congress. So this is completely out of the scope, out of the jurisdiction of the executive branch. One, two, there's been very little discussion of how this program actually works, what the details are. It was more of a rushed announcement, it seems like, for political reasons rather than sound policy, which, if you ask me, that seems to be the MO of this administration.
Yeah, and you did mention taxpayers, which is a perfect segue into the next question I have for you. Biden's student loan forgiveness package is estimated to cost around $300 billion. How will this price tag affect taxpayers?
Well, I've seen a couple of different studies that have come out since the announcement. There's been I think a Penn Wharton study done, and they said this could possibly be upwards of $1 trillion. That is just, again, tacked on to the over $8 trillion that was spent last year in 2021 by the Democrat administration. Now, of course, we're feeling that through inflation, which topped out a little over 9.5%. And if you use other calculations, inflation is much higher than that. You look at the Fed increasing interest rates, which makes home ownership and loans more expensive. So people trying to get on their feet, establish roots or a foundation in a community, that's getting tougher. Things are getting more expensive. The supply chain is broken. So when you look at another 300 billion, if you're on the low end, up to $1 trillion, if you're looking at one of the other studies, this is going to further exacerbate inflation. And of course, we know that through the 87,000 new IRS agents that the Biden administration has authorized, that is going to be in the form of audits. The collection of money is going to be through the audits that are targeting people making $200,000 or less. And I mean, heck, the IRS even published a chart talking about how audits are going to go up in different tax brackets. So if you're making $75,000, for example, or less, you are a prime target for the IRS. Now, that's going to just be further exacerbated by the fact that now you have additional economic pressures on you because of the loan transfer that is now on your shoulders rather than someone else's.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a slippery slope of how this will affect taxpayers, and hopefully we get to learn a little bit more about that soon. I want to start talking about some of the reactions you've been seeing. Obviously, as someone from Congress, what has been, said around your neck of the woods from your colleagues who either paid off their student loans already or even chose not to go to college?
Yeah, this is what's interesting. I think being the youngest Republican woman in Congress today, this is really an issue that affects my peer group the most. I'm 34 and I have several friends who took out student loans, some who have paid them off, some who are still paying them. For me, I paid my student loans off and it was, tough at points, but it was something that we did because it was what we had to do. It's very simple. You take a loan out, you pay it back. That's the conditions. No one forces you to take these loans out. But then I've had some friends who they're still paying their loans off and they're getting a little bit of forgiveness, quote unquote, forgiveness on their loans. And they said, actually, I know that this is going to make my taxes go higher and I'm already paying plenty in taxes and I'm trying to get on my feet. And they're a little bit disgusted about it. They've built a life around how they were saving and planning and doing all these things. And now they're getting squeezed tighter. And for some of them, home ownership is no longer on the table because they cannot continue to pay the number of taxes that they're paying, plus all of the increased prices on food and everyday goods and services. They're just getting squeezed too tight. And they know because they're college graduates. They know that there's going to be an increased pressure on them from this new expenditure from the government. So there's a lot of disgust. And I would say that it transcends party. So even though Republicans have been particularly outspoken about this measure, I've talked to Democrats and independents that are very upset about this. I actually spoke with a woman who is an administrative assistant, and she's a Democrat. And she said, I worked really, really hard to pay off my loans. I made sacrifices. I bought a smaller home. I went to a cheaper school. I could have gone to a very fancy school, and I went to a university at the state level rather than go to a private university. And those were decisions that she made because she was going to pay her loans off. And now she is being punished for that. That is just what is fundamentally wrong about this whole issue. It's the government picking winners and losers. It's fundamentally unfair. And when you look at what we're about as a country, we are a nation based on equal opportunity, not equal outcome. And what we've done is we've said, it doesn't matter if you got a gender studies degree or an engineering degree. This is equal outcome. Even though we know that your local Starbucks barista has probably got the gender studies degree and your engineer out there working and doing really, really important work. And so that's the thing that I think is really concerning to people, regardless of party, regardless of where you find yourself on the economic scale. I think that people recognize that it could be a little bit of relief now, but the pain is going to be a lot worse in the long run. And that's what people are really concerned about here at home.
And have you heard from any students in your district who might have, specifically chosen their school or degree based on, financial circumstances?
Yeah, absolutely. I live in Gainesville, Florida. So we're home to the University of Florida. We are the Gator Nation. So of course, I get to work with college students a lot. And in fact, on my own campaign, I have students that are currently enrolled and they just kind of looked at this like, well, wait a minute. I worked really hard throughout college or through high school, and I got Florida Bright Futures and I got scholarships, and I worked really, really hard to plan for college, and my parents worked really hard to save. We skipped vacations. We did things to make sure that we could afford college. And I think that there's a little bit of dismay initially that they've planned, they've done everything right. And now they have friends that maybe didn't, and they're getting rewarded for it. So it's kind of like the whole notion of, socialism and communism, like doesn't matter how hard you work, it all equals out in the end. So it really can be discouraging. But I think at the same time, this has really motivated people in a way that I haven't seen before, particularly amongst independents and some more moderate people on the Democrat side. They're saying, wait a minute, that's not who we are. And they're saying, you know what? I don't like the direction that the Democrats are going. I don't like the direction of this nation and this idea that no matter how hard I work or if I do all the right things, I still am going to get the same result as the person who didn't make good decisions and didn't plan and didn't work as hard. That's I think what's going to be a driving message going into these midterm elections. And I think, again, like I said, it transcends party, it transcends age, socioeconomic backgrounds. And that's what's going to be really exciting to see, is this new generation of leaders who step up and say, no, we're going to fight for the America that values hard work, that values that determination, and people who have really done things the right way, and fought for their future and these opportunities.
Yeah, and just one quick final question for you. As of this interview, you know, college students are starting to head back to campus, heading back to their dorms. You've been a proponent of free speech on college campuses. Do you have a quick piece of advice for them?
Oh my goodness, yes. So I'm really proud to lead the Campus Free Speech Caucus in Congress. And, you know, this is a really big, important issue because obviously we are a nation built on life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Our Constitution is what binds it all together. And our First Amendment rights are particularly challenged on a college campus. You know, it wasn't too long ago that I found myself as an undergrad on a college campus, and my Latin American politics professor, oh, I'll never forget it. She immediately started attacking Republicans, and, you know, had this whole narrative about white guilt and, you know, how we were terrible people. And I remember being singled out in the class, and she had wanted me to take an F on a paper, but had allowed other people who had failed that particular assignment to rewrite it, but she was refusing to let me rewrite it. And so there was a double set of standards in the class. And I remember just these constant back and forth battles, these really intense conversations and arguments in the class. And it went so far as to her trying to get me kicked out of not just the class, but the school. And it was simply for having conservative ideas. And at the time, I wasn't really politically involved. I didn't belong to college Republicans or anything. I voted, but I was just kind of, you know, an independent thinker. And I remember thinking, this is so wrong. And if she's doing this to me, she's doing this to other people. Heck, this is happening all over campus. And so I went through a battle very similar to what so many college students are experiencing today. And the things that I've heard and seen have gotten progressively worse over the years. And so my advice to students, particularly conservative students on campus, is to never back down, never sit down, and never shut up. Even though they may try to intimidate and bully and harass you, that is all the more reason why your voice needs to be at the table and needs to be heard. Because when people are trying to shut you down and shut you out, it's not because they think that you're wrong. It's because they're scared that your ideas are better than theirs, and they want to shut you out because they're afraid. So don't be afraid. Go out there, join your local student groups. Gosh, there's so many out there. You know, Turning Point's wonderful. Young Americans for Freedom, Young Americans Freedom's Foundation is so good. YAL is so good. Young Americans for Liberty. I'm going to forget so many now. The Independent Women's Forum. You know, there's so many incredible college Republicans, so many good organizations on campus. Make sure that you're getting involved, and, you know, find your folks that, you know, really share those values and principles and ideals, because it can be a little bit lonely in some of those classrooms when you feel like you're the only one who's the conservative in the room. And don't ever feel like you have to write a paper with a liberal slant to get a passing grade. I hear that way too often. It's really discouraging. Be true to who you are. And even if you feel like you're taking a hit for it, you can at least sleep at night knowing that you were true to who you are and your ideas and your beliefs. So hang in there, and just know that you have an entire Congress behind you that's got your back.
You heard it here, guys. Congresswoman Cammack, thank you so much for joining me today. Once again, my name is Logan Dubil with Campus Reform. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe for future content.